In this video, we're going to look at the highest common factor known as the HCF and the lowest common multiple called the LCM. So let's take an example. The question says to work out the highest common factor of 24 and 64. So what we need to do first of all is do something called a product of primes. So I'm going to write 24 on one side, 64 on the other side, and write down two numbers at times together to make 24. So I'm going to say 3 times 8, and then say what two numbers times together make 8? Well, 2 times 4, and I can break this down to 2 times 2. Now, whenever we have a prime number, we always circle it. So 3 is prime, 2 is prime, 2 is prime, 2 is prime. Now we're going to do the same thing for 64. So 8 times 8 is 64. We can break this down to 2 and 4. So we get 2, 2, and 2. Same thing here. So we got 2, 4, 2, and 2. Then what we do now is we write this out in something called the product of primes. So we write 24 and we do 2 times 2 times 2 times 3. This is known as the product of primes. Now we write 64 directly underneath it. So we do 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. So now, if you notice, all the numbers are aligned underneath each other. The reason for that is to make the grouping a lot easier. So the highest common factor means what's common. So I've got a 2 and a 2 here. That's common. So let's circle that. So you write that once only, a 2. I got my other common factor, which is 2, but you write that once only. So you put times 2. And then you got another common factor, which is 2 again. And then you write times 2. So the key thing is you only write that factor out once. And there's nothing else that's common. This is known as the HCF, or the highest common factor. So the highest common factor in our case is 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Then the next part of the question says to work out the lowest common multiple, or the LCM. So the technique here is we write down, or you always work out your HCF first. So we write down the HCF. So I'm going to write 8, and underneath it, I'm going to annotate that as HCF to remind us this is what the HCF is. And then what we do, we take every number that hasn't been circled, so 3. So I put times 3 here. Take the 2, times 2. Take this 2, times that 2, and this one here, times 2. And then we just work it out. So then the LCM will be the following. So we can say 8 times 3 is 24, times 2 is 48, times 2 is 96. And then we could do 96 times 2. That gives me 12, 18 plus 1, 192. So we get 192 as the LCM. Here's a question for you to try. You can pause the video, and when you're done, I will go through my work solution. Okay, welcome back. So we want to work out the HCF of 75 and 90. So we could write 75 and 90 here. So we can break down 75 into 25 times 3. Now 3 is prime. Break down 25 into 5 times 5. Now we do the same for 90. So that's going to be the same as 15 times 6. So that's going to be 3 and 5, 2 and 3. So we can write 75 as the following: 3 times 5 times 5. We can write 90 in exactly the same way. So it's going to be 2 times 3 times 3 times 5. So now we can say, well, I've got a common factor of 3 here and a common factor of 3 here. So you write that once. And then I've got a 5 here and a 5 here. So I get times 5. And then my HCF is 3 times 5. My HCF is 15. So now I want to work out the LCM. So remember the technique for the LCM. You write 15 as your HCF. So you write 15 first. Label that as the HCF. And then we can now multiply this by all the numbers that haven't been underlined. So we've got a 2. So put a 2 there. And then we've got 5 as well. And a 3. So we can now work this out. So we've got 15 times 2 gives me 30. And then we've got 30 times 5 is going to be 150. And 150 times 3 is 450. And that will be the LCM.